City of Stevens Point Personnel Committee meeting, recorded February 14, 2022.
It is 6:42 and the Personnel Committee is called to order, and our agenda begins with a roll call.
Shore.
Here.
Zerzua.
Here.
Dalton.
Here.
Christensen.
Here.
Leek.
Here.
All are present. Agenda item number 2 is a pair of administrative policy changes, possible action in 2.06 and 2.07. And if Manager Yakush would introduce them, that'd be great.
Sure. Included in the packet was a memo outlining the request for 2.06 and indicating that was actually an amendment requested by Mayor Wiesa. 2.07 is simply cleanup. Some years back, the City Council approved hiring at step 2 versus step 1, so that is just a cleanup item. And I don't know if the mayor wanted to speak more about his policy amendment request.
Please. Sure. So we noticed a bit of a potential problem with conflicting policies. If someone, currently, based in our policy, if someone is promoted from within, they are only allowed to go up to the next step in that grade that offers at least a 5% increase. If a new person is hired, brand new off the street, we have the authority with the small committee approval to go up to step 3. In some cases, and we had one, maybe 2, step 3 is higher than what a promotion would allow. So for example, Mike Wiesa gets promoted from within, 5% gives me the next grade with step 2, and Joe Smith from off the street can come in and start at step 3. I'm only allowed to start at step 2. A brand new person could start at step 3. So in the interest of fairness, we're going to make them equal, allowing them to go up to step 3. I don't think this is going to happen very much, but our tenured employees, our promotions, should be allowed to at least make the same as some fresh new person off the street.
So if I understand, that cap on internal promotions can't even be done subject to anyone's approval?
Correct. The policy said the next step that gives at least a 5% increase.
So then the issues are, should the internal hire, is there any reason for the internal hire to be different? Which you said no. Then what is the process for those higher levels? And on the external hire side, the subcommittee is used. And so if we make them equal then, so what should the process be for the internal promotions? Should it be the same, or what should it be?
Right.
Please.
I thought we had a couple of promotions that were over that percentage.
You do.
Yeah, okay.
So
what's, I understand the rationale in hiring, because sometimes if you, and as you noted in your, in our packet, sometimes when you're hiring, there's a shortage of candidates, or there's somebody that's exceptionally well qualified, and I've been in those hiring type situations, and I totally concur that you need to have that flexibility to be able to move on those candidates. I guess I don't see the same, we approved raises for promotions above that. There seems to be already a mechanism in place to be able to handle those.
no, I think what you're thinking of is sometimes if a promotion happens, the very first step in the next grade will be more than 5%. So let me see if I can break this down a little bit better. For the simplicity's sake, we will say step A, step B, step C, and step D. Step A, or I'm sorry, grade A, B, C, and D will have start at $1, $2, $3, and $4, just for the sake of ease. If I take an internal employee that is at grade A1, making $1 an hour, and I promote them to grade C, step one is $3 an hour, that's more than 5%. There is no approval needed, because that's the very first, that's what our policy says. The first step in that grade that gives them at least a 5%. Now, it may be 20%, but the first step has to be at least 5%.
Right.
And that's why you've seen, on occasion, employees get more than 5%, because the grade difference is that much.
But didn't we promote someone 3 grades?
We can go up to step 3. See, grades and steps are different.
Right.
So we can go up to step 3 with an internal committee approval. And that consists of myself, the department head, Director Manager Yakush, and the chairman of personnel, in this case, Alder Shore.
And Comptroller Treasurer.
Oh, yeah,
Laddick.
and Comptroller Treasurer Laddick.
Internal.
That's the internal group that approves those or denies those.
But we have that we do have something for promotions.
No, we don't.
But that's
And that's what-
that's
what the
internal,
problem
for
is.
Extra, it's for the hires.
Right.
It's for the hires.
So that was for the new hires. An internal promotion only allows up to that 5% in whatever grade it is. So give me a hypothetical situation here. A person could be promoted in a department to the next grade, whatever that grade was, and 5% might only take them to step 2. But a new person, brand new off the street, could, with that committee approval, get step 3. And to me, it doesn't seem fair to have a new person be able to go to step 3, but a person who has been with us for a number of years only be able to hit step 2.
But it says, and so and maybe I'm confusing steps and grades, but it said, this employee was promoted into an hourly position that was 3 grades higher than his current position. So
Yep.
we do.
3 grades are different.
Okay.
The classification for your position is your grade. An alderperson is grade 1. A lead is grade 2. Well, they're actually letters, so A, B, C, and
Gotcha. So it's.
if you really want to get technical, I think our lowest grade is J.
A.
A?
Yeah, the lowest grade that we have any
Oh.
positions in, however,
Right.
Yeah.
grade.
But the grades are alphabetical, and that defines your job duties. Your steps generally refer to the tenure.
Right.
So the
it's-
longer
it's-
you've been here, the more steps you have.
So it's analogous to steps and lanes in the contracts. in the
Yes.
School districts, gotcha.
But it's not that they can't bump up. Isn't it that in order to get that position is going to have to be open to an outside search, and they're going to have to come out on top through that? I mean,
Yes, but that's irrelevant in this case. We're always going to choose the best candidate. In some cases, an internal candidate will be best. In some cases, an external candidate would be best. The point that we're trying to do here is an external candidate
Right.
can get step 3. The internal candidate can only get the next step that gives them 5%. That might be step 1.
No, it can't be
Well,
step
you're right, it
one.
can't be step 1, I'm sorry, because we eliminated that. So it could be step 2. A person who has been here, in some cases, 10, 12, 20 years, can only go to step 2, and a brand-new person off the street could go at step 3. There's just an equity issue there. That internal candidate should have the same opportunity that anyone else has.
And I would agree with that, but I don't see the same time crunch as you do with an external candidate. And so I guess I'm not convinced that you need to move as quickly. And so instead of going to a small group, I would think that it could be presented to the personnel committee as a whole instead of just a handful, because it doesn't have that same time crunch.
Well, and I would submit, Alder Christensen, that it does. If we are looking at an internal candidate, and that internal candidate doesn't take the job right away, or there's a slower process, and then they turn it down, now we've lost the opportunity for another candidate. The time necessity is pretty equal.
That's exactly why I'm trying to understand the relationship between promotion and an open search. Because surely it's not that people can't move, not that they cannot move up in the organization past a certain amount. I'm assuming that, so what is the relationship between between this and needing to open up a search to external candidates?
Okay, and as I mentioned, Alderperson, it's almost irrelevant because in the case that brought this to our attention, it was an open search. It was everybody. The best candidate, after all going through the interviews of external and internal, was an internal candidate. That internal candidate wasn't able to go to step 3 like an external candidate would have been. So whether it's a nationwide search or strictly an internal search is irrelevant. The best candidate, in some cases,
Yeah.
won't have the ability to make the same as someone else.
But I think it is relevant in the sense that that doesn't look like a promotion. Right, because that doesn't look like a promotion, because they went up against, we weren't just bringing them along in their career with the city. Open search was conducted, they came out on top. I think that is relevant.
Yeah, that's what I believe I was getting is the intention to use this on only open, this policy for only open search versus, like, at what point does the department head identify like there might be a appropriate candidate within department to move up? And so I'm thinking about this versus this is enacted after open search timeline.
Okay, I think I'm slowly understanding, but I can't tell you the last time that we didn't have an open search.
That's generally the policy. That makes sense.
Yeah, we want the best person for that job, whoever that might be. And I can't tell you the last time we just strictly did an internal, hey, Brian, we're gonna promote you.
Yeah, I feel like transit maybe was the last.
Yeah, and that I can't speak to.
So, kind of a comment and a question. So in some of the more blue-collar labor pools, streets, I think the utility does it to some degree as well, where they might post a lead position. If the lead person retires, moves on, they would post it internally before accepting applications from outside. So that is more of a true promotion.
Yeah, and I think we may be misusing terms here, because in this case, it really wasn't a promotion, it was a change of job.
But that's a promotion.
Well,
And that's exactly the situation that I was thinking of, is we just had a great person in actually, when the streets department, when we had the retirement. And there wasn't an external search, and so but we had good people inside and had staff recommendation. But that still came to this body and was presented and approved by.
No, that promotion did not come before this body.
The
no.
reorganization.
reorganization did.
Reorg did,
Right,
yes,
Yeah, that's
yes,
completely different.
yes.
You are approving the positions.
When they change.
Yes,
Right, okay.
that's,
The organization
the
structure, so to
organizational
speak.
structure is up
But
to this body.
until we did the reorganization, they wouldn't have been able to been promoted.
No, they would have just been promoted into other positions. I think we're getting way off topic here.
I was gonna say, I'm generally supportive and would be willing to move approval of the policy.
So Mr. Christensen, Alder Christensen, there's an organizational structure right now. Within that structure, as it exists, promotions can still happen. With the reorganization, once that takes full effect, promotions will happen there too.
Was
You
that
can
a
still get
motion?
promoted in either one of
Is it
those.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Thank you. That was on the floor. I don't want to cut off, I want to continue the discussion. We're, kind of feeling our way towards fully understanding this.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not 100% sure why it's,
Well, the question
Challenging.
is, what, we have a check in, we want this reviewed. Why? What is the oversight of? Whether it's personnel committee, or whether it's the internal committee, or whatever it's called. Because there's reference in the memo to how rare this is, right? And so presumably, we are making a policy that's about, checking and making sure. And we're trying to understand checking and making sure what. My understanding coming to the discussion was that it was checking to make sure that it wasn't just an effort to increase the pay for an employee. And along with that, I was thinking, when I hear promotion, I tend to think that it's an internal search only, that it wasn't open to an external search. So I think if that helps explain what we're trying to understand, the check is in the system to check on what, to verify what, to make sure of what.
To make sure that the position is able to be compensated equitably. Now, let me try another example here, and this is fictitious. If my administrative assistant leaves tomorrow, and we put out a search for a new administrative assistant, we'll say Tom, who has been an administrative assistant in another department for 10 years, applies for the job, and John, an administrative assistant from a different company, applies. If I hire John, I can start him at step 3 on whatever grade that is. If I choose to hire Tom, I might only be able to hire him at step 2. And that is inequitable. They should at least be the same compensation opportunity. And if that's a review by that internal board, like it is for the external candidate, then that's okay for the internal candidate as well. But to say that one can be hired at 3 and one can only be hired at step 2 is inequitable, and it's not fair.
And I totally concur with that. So then you're saying this would only apply in those situations where there's a search and external candidates are considered and internal candidates are considered, and the internal candidate comes out on top. You want to be able to have that flexibility then?
If you want it to be only for open searches, we could certainly do that, because that's mostly what we do. And again, this is such a rare instance. I mean, you're talking about 2.75%
2.75%
difference between the two. So the odds of it happening are pretty slim, but it did.
But with all of that clarified, right?
I don't know if that would have to be a friendly amendment to the motion.
If I were to make a recommendation, though, Mr. Chairman, to make it easy, just do it across the board, so people understand what they're getting up against. Not, without the necessity of having an external search.
For all changes of that magnitude.
Yes, everything should be the same,
Yeah.
right? Everybody should have the same opportunity. So to say that if it's just an internal search,
Right.
you're still going to have
Okay.
qualified candidates. We're not going to hire somebody who's not qualified.
Right.
I would say rather than murk it up a little bit with internal versus open search, that you just make it the same policy for everything.
But I think that does make it the same, because for the external, you're saying you want to have a level playing field for both internal and external. That enables, if you're doing it for those open searches, then that to me is a level playing field.
Well, so are you saying then that if I would be up for a promotion and I'm going to get step 2, that I can quit and apply and then become step 3?
No, because if you're up for, if you're being considered and the other person's being considered and it's an open search, then you're allowed that same opportunity because there's an open search. I guess, to throw out a hypothetical, if your administrative assistant said, I'm gonna quit tomorrow, and so you said, well, I'll make you administrative assistant and something, or, you know, would you be able to unilaterally just say, we'll get our small group together and we can move you 3
No.
steps?
No,
What would prevent that?
policy. I can't just give someone a raise.
No, not you, but that group, I mean,
No,
she's saying yes, I know.
The group doesn't have the authority to give someone a raise like that either.
But what would
Yeah,
prevent,
okay.
if you had the comptroller and, I mean, if those people said,
But
sure, go
it's-
ahead.
But it's not allowed. Policy does not allow us to do that.
I thought that's what this policy would allow.
No. Hiring.
So this is
But it's
only
a
for.
promotion.
No,
If
but
you-
I think I'm understanding. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're really getting into semantics here.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna create a new job for my
Okay.
assistant
Right.
just so I can give her a raise.
Okay.
This is, yeah.
The
I mean,
word-
we're making this a lot more difficult really than it needs to be.
The word promotion was not helping us.
Right.
And you're probably right, but that's what our policy is used for the word.
Now that we
But
understand.
yeah, I'm not gonna add some duties just so they can get a
Yeah.
raise.
Call a question.
Well, but,
Can I just
after-
ask a question?
Yes.
So, historically, the hiring up to step 3 has only been done, for management level positions. So for the promotions now, you're saying it would be all positions, correct? I just want to make sure that I have it correct.
Well, the hiring of step 3, it doesn't just apply to management positions, it applies to all positions.
Well, okay, then
That's
let
what
me,
the
let me
policy says.
rephrase that. In the past, we've never had a request for an hourly position, only for management level positions. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding it
Across the
correctly.
Right. And with that, sorry, after this rich discussion that we've had, anybody here or online, I'm looking for indications, I don't see any electronic raised hands, I don't see any personal raised hands. Yeah, please, go ahead.
I'm almost more confused now than I was when we started this.
Ron Carlson, 3356 Oak Avenue. But I think what you two are thinking about, and it would be so much easier just sitting here watching this, if you have an open candidate search. If you include that somehow, I think that would satisfy you two gentlemen, wouldn't it? If that wording was somehow included in it, an open search. And I think everybody's happy then, I would say, you know, but.
Here's what I propose.
Okay.
That we take a vote, and possibly there could be a further refinement in what's brought to council.
Okay. I just, again, to speak to Mr. Carlson saying, it's easier to administer if it's across the board.
Right, that's and we clarified that. That's what we just reached an understanding of. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I request roll call.
Okay, yes. Do we have to vote on whether there's a recorded vote?
No,
Okay.
no, just do a roll call
Okay.
vote, please.
Let's just, please call the roll.
Shore,
Aye.
Zerzua,
Aye.
Dalton,
Aye.
Leek,
Aye.
Christensen.
Abstain.
We have one abstention on the basis of recusal, I believe. Okay. Thank you. Meanwhile, 2.07
Meanwhile, back in the race.
is a cleanup. Manager Yockers, would you please explain this even
well-
simpler issue?
I believe I already did.
That's
And
true.
I had them under the
That's true.
same
You did.
item
You
on the
did.
agenda.
You did. The current text says, it says 1, and it's actually 2.
Correct, yep.
Yes.
So actually, agenda item number 3 would be the reorganization of the records area.
Right. Well, but we need a separate approval of this. Hey, yes. Let's just do it.
We approved the whole, yeah, my understanding was approving that whole agenda item.
The motion was for both. Okay, excellent.
My motion was for the whole line item.
I have the next item as the reorganization in the police department first.
Correct.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve that for the purpose of beginning discussion.
Thank you. A motion by Dalton, a second by Leek.
Included in the pack, oh, I apologize.
Just to clarify, it's reorganization of the records area, not the whole police department.
Thank you, Alders, reorganization. That does make it sound a
Quite an
little bit.
overreach there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So included in the packet was a memo from Chief Zenner, and he is here to address any questions that the elders may have.
Are there any questions? None on the committee. None that I see in the physical. Turning to the screen, no hands raised there. Motion has been moved and seconded.
Yep.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. Next is, now, this is the reorganization of the department, not just one office. So unless you have anything that you want to say, we'll turn to Director.
Nope, just that Director Kanowski included a packet
Yep.
with information if the committee members have any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just to note, since my wife works in that department, I will recuse myself from all discussion and voting on this, so.
Thank you for that note and explanation. Director Kanowski.
Thank you, Chair. So this last fall, Assistant City Assessor Sharon Patoka retired from the city after, I think, 24 years of service. As a result, through an open candidate search, I should clarify, property appraiser Sandy Kratzky was promoted Assistant City Assessor. And from that point, we took the property appraiser position and put the rehiring of that on hold. And the department kind of came together and thought, what do we need in this department? You don't have an opportunity often to look at your department and figure out where the future of the city is going and the future of the department should be going as a result. So through those conversations with assessing staff and planning and zoning staff and economic development staff, we more or less are proposing two changes. First would be the creation of the community development technician position, and that would be a promotion of our current full-time administrative assistant to this community development technician position, which would assist in the day-to-day operations that she currently does, but also adds the assessing component to her job responsibilities. That would also require that she obtain the Department of Revenue Assessing Technician certification, which is a test she has to take. And that position is going to help with more of that administrative side, personal property tax as well. And that happens, I should say, when the assessing department is busy, building inspection is typically slower. And so in December and January and February, when assessment and personal property notices are going out, sorry, apparently we're signed out of our Zoom. If I'm not left-handed. There you go. And then in the summer months when building inspection is much busier, she would be focusing on the building inspection side. And it really identifies and realigns the position with really what she's done. Maria's been with the department for a number of years and has taken on a number of additional responsibilities, but unfortunately her job description wasn't accurately reflecting those changes in job responsibilities. So that was the first component of that, and that helped backfill some of the assessing department's concerns about losing a full-time property appraiser. And then second would be the creation of a new position called the Neighborhood Planner Economic Development Specialist. The city has had an economic development specialist in the past. That position was eliminated or reorged, I think, about 10 years ago as a part of a larger reorganization of the department. But essentially, this position's aligned with the city's soon-to-be, hopefully adopted strategic plan, wherein they focus more on that neighborhood planning. We're going to start the comprehensive plan work, and we're going to be doing that internally. But that comprehensive plan is going to be more focused on neighborhood planning and building that large document kind of from the bottom up. And so this position is going to be helping with that, also helping the department director with a number of economic development projects that we have in the works. Simply put, we are swamped. The department is in over our head in terms of projects, and unfortunately projects are being either put to the side or just aren't being addressed because we just don't have the staffing time and ability to address concerns and issues. A good example was the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation issues pretty regularly requests for information to the community development departments throughout the state. And we have like 3 or 4 days to turn around with some really intense information on like what's the power supply, what's the ability to get sewer and water out to specific properties, what's the ability for the city to provide these incentives. And we just don't have the time to respond to any of these requests because we just don't have the staffing in order to do it. I can't drop everything and put together these really intensive surveys to bring in hopefully new business. So this position would help with a lot of that, would help with a lot of the day-to-day inquiries as well, and work with like our Downtown Business Association and the bid creation. I did provide some additional data. There's probably an argument to be made that the city of Stevens Point has been doing more with less over the last several years, but we're just to a breaking point where we can't continue to function at such a high level without some type of additional assistance from another planning and economic development position. There was a financial impact. The two positions, their changes with benefits, was just shy of $20,000. We did not have that dollar amount in the city's budget or in the department's budget, but the Redevelopment Authority has agreed to fund $20,000 worth of the director's salary out of the Housing Trust Fund for the next 5 years, and hopefully at the end of that 5 years we have the financial ability to take that on within our budget through net new construction, economic development activity. There is an alternative. If the commission so chooses, we could continue forward and post the property appraiser position instead of doing this larger reorganization.
Thank you. Alder Dalton.
Thank you. I'm generally supportive of the reorg and appreciate the load that this department bears. Perhaps my one concern is semantic in that in the creation of the neighborhood improvement coordinator, that position was designed to be largely proactive, educational, mediative, doing things that help with neighborhood planning generally. And so maybe I would just like that box to be up with the associate planner and the neighborhood planner, and working more synergistically, because I think otherwise there's a tendency that the economic development end and the planning end of that can take all the positive and progress, like moving forward with ideas, components of that work, leaving Mark and that person in that position with the facilitation of neighbor-to-neighbor problems, or just being the code enforcement solely, and that, as we've seen in the past, historically, that did not lead to a high quality of work job generally that someone was interested in. So I guess generally maybe further perspective on how the neighborhood planner may differ a little bit. Obviously taking on the economic development role is an important part, but if there the idea is to get into the neighborhoods as well, how does that differ or work alongside the neighborhood improvement?
Yes, so the neighborhood improvement coordinator position was, as you mentioned earlier, originally designed to be more proactive. We still do a lot of informational sessions with students. At one point we had another neighborhood improvement monitor position. We had a really hard time filling that position with quality candidates, and so we actually ended up eliminating that position from the department. And we could get into that and why, we really didn't feel as though that was the right move for the city and for the department. But, so Mark does a lot of the proactive approach to neighborhood improvement. There is still that code enforcement component. And I think if you look at the number of code enforcement cases since Mark came on, it's actually gone down pretty significantly. And we can definitely provide that data. And part of it is just we're much more proactive and we're much more approachable in working with homeowners than just sending them a nasty letter and giving them 30 days to alleviate a problem. But yeah, this position would help, the new position, the neighborhood planner position, would also help with the marketing of the programs that we do have. That's something that we've always struggled with, whether it's Neighbor Helping Neighbor or the rental conversion program. Just getting that information out there and working with the neighborhood improvement coordinator on marketing that material and working with various neighborhood associations to let them know that those programs are available to residents and are actually pretty easy to obtain.
But could you say some more about why you see the work as more separate from rather than alongside within the same team? If I understood Alder Dalton's question.
Yeah, so the big difference is, this position is doing more of that urban planning component to the neighborhood planning and economic development position. The neighborhood improvement coordinator, which is Mark Cordes, is more of that enforcement arm. And so that's where we try to separate those positions a little bit. You don't want someone who's going to be necessarily going into the neighborhoods to do some, urban planning meetings as we go through our comprehensive plan update, being the same person that sends out letters saying that you've got to paint your house, right? We don't want that we want that position to be approachable, and so having them separated a little bit goes a long way in building that confidence within the department as we go through the exercise of comprehensive and neighborhood planning.
Thank you for that. Please.
I was gonna say that there's someone online that has had their hand raised.
I actually,
Alder Nebon,
I
please.
actually have a comment as well.
Please, yes, go ahead.
I was a neighborhood planner in the city of Dallas for 5 years. Neighborhood planners work intimately with small groups of citizens and other city departments, including code enforcement, to do the things that the people in those neighborhoods feel is best for their neighborhood. I could not support this more strongly. And now is a really good time to do this. We've got a huge area out here in my neighborhood that's begging to be developed in a logical, environmentally conscious way. A couple of areas. This is something a neighborhood planner would do. You start building your consensus. You find out what the citizens want. You then bring in the economic development, the economic component, and you build something that sustains the neighborhood. So I'm all for this, and I hope that everyone will support this. It's a brilliant idea. Thank you.
If I can make sure I understand you, Alder Nebon, so clearly you're supporting the new position and the need. Do you see things similarly to the director in terms of the separateness of the functions between the improvement coordinator who works with what already is distinct from the planner, kind of looking at what could be? That they are distinct and separate rather than fully integrated.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
When I was working as a neighborhood planner in Dallas, about once a quarter, I would ride around the neighborhood with the individual that was assigned the code enforcement area, or the code enforcement duties for that area. And you start to get a feel for what the neighborhood needs at the grassroots level. And you can find out if there are programs that can help homeowners who may not be able to repair something. You can start to match up citizens with resources. It's important to keep enforcement and planning separate, but you work together as a team.
Coordinated, not
Meantime,
integrated.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
But they're two different entities, but Mark would certainly be a feature at a meeting to talk about that perspective and how can we make this better, and this is why we do these things. So it's another way to disseminate information as well. But yeah, I agree, you keep the functions separate, but you work together as a team holistically.
Thanks.
So just on that, just as an example, if the building inspectors are out, or Adam Kuhn, our associate planner and zoning administrator, is out, and they notice, junk being piled up in front of a garage, we're another set of eyes. We don't send out those orders, but we inform the code enforcement officer, Mark Cordes, that, hey, this is something you might want to look into. And that's just one way that we work together. The department really isn't siloed. We do work together. We have weekly meetings with everybody, and just make sure that we're all on the same page. So I see.
Don't make too much of the boxes, I think.
Right.
is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yep. Exactly. So I see Mr. Weir has got his
Yeah,
hand up.
thank you. I was coming to him next. Mr. Weir?
Bob Weir, 727 Second Street. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm not getting any feedback. Two potential problems. First of which was raised by, I believe, John Gardner at the Redevelopment Authority. That being that to transfer $20,000 per year for the next 5 years from the housing, or what is it, the Housing Trust Fund, I believe, that the that the Redevelopment Authority has control of, would reduce the ability of the Redevelopment Authority to spend whatever's in their trust fund for improvement on properties within the city, grants or loans or whatever, because they would have to maintain that balance in order to have the interest of approximately $20,000 to be able to transfer over to pay a portion of the community development director's salary.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. So the other concern that I would have, and of course I'm not in government, but based on my past knowledge, when Sharon Patoka retired, that left a void of, or it reduced the assessor's office to one employee, Sandy Kratzky. We have a contract assessor, Steve Sepro. I don't know whether Steve has even been approached on the proposal of changing and not rehiring to fill Sharon Patoka's position. Maria Moore is certainly a very capable individual. I'm sure she would be able to pass eventually the Assessor 2 examination and be licensed. But there's particularly this year, since we are, I believe, doing a reval of the entire city, it's going to take some people that are licensed to make those changes to the property assessments within the city. And I don't know how long it would take for Maria to be licensed to be able to make those adjustments. And again, I don't know whether Steve Sepro is even aware of the fact that and basically he's on a contract. I don't have a copy of his contract in front of me, obviously, but I believe that the contract says that the city will maintain administrative support for the assessor functions. And, there's certainly going to be a gap there. Sandy Kratzky is not
Sure,
licensed. I don't know.
those are fair
So,
questions. So let's take those on board.
Yeah.
Number one, where does this leave the Housing Trust Fund in terms of some of those other programs? Number two, impact on the reassessment of the whole city upcoming.
Sure. Correct. The redevelopment authority did have some concerns over, what are the long-term implications of the housing trust fund. The housing trust fund has a substantial amount of money in it and has garnered additional monies through interest revenue. I think the redevelopment authority, and this is something that we're hoping to do this year, is going through a bit of a strategic plan for that organization, but identify ways that we can better utilize the funds and get those funds out into the city and into the public so that we don't sit on a bunch of money and just not use it and garner interest. There are other ways to replenish the housing trust fund monies as well. Instead of using it for low interest loans or anything like that, we can essentially extend the life of all of our TIF districts by 1 year, and all the increment from those extension of the TIF life can be utilized for affordable housing projects. So we could put that money back into the housing trust funds. We currently have 9 active TIFs, 3 that were just created, but TIF number 5 is coming up on closure. TIF number 6, which is finally doing well financially, is also coming up on closure. And then we could also utilize TIF funding to replenish the housing trust fund if those funds are utilized within a half mile of the TIF boundary. So the areas that we've utilized monies for the housing trust fund in the past have been on the city's north side, north of downtown and south of downtown. But as long as they're within that half mile, and almost every parcel in the city is within a half mile of the TIF district now, you can use that to replenish the housing trust fund if the housing trust fund is fronting money for affordable housing projects, as an example. So I know the redevelopment authority had some concerns. Quite honestly, I don't have the same concerns that they do. There are a number of financing mechanisms that we can have to replenish that fund. And at the end of the 5 years, my hope would be that there's continued net new construction in the city that we can help offset the $20,000 to $25,000 costs and can absorb that within our own budget by that point. That's one of the things is that we do bring in all the net new construction. We go through the process, but we don't always reap those benefits. Other departments might, as an example. So.
And then on the question of the upcoming reassessment?
Correct. So of course, we've been consulting with our city assessor, Steve Shepro. Steve and I communicate daily, and I don't know how many times I've asked him, are you okay with this plan? Is this something that you're comfortable with? And so we do go from 2 full-time assessing staff to essentially 1.5, because part of Maria's, the community development technician's position would be in the assessing division. And of course, Steve has his own staff at Forward Appraisal that'll be doing work with us as well. There are a number of contracted employees through Steve's company that do come into the office on a regular basis. And so, we are all, as a department, very comfortable with this reorganization.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the floor?
No, I'd move approval of the reorganization of
Dalton moves
redevelopment.
approval.
Second.
Well, is there a second?
Can I
Before we take a vote, please.
I have just a quick question. Would it be required or appropriate, I'm not sure what term to use, to have the redevelopment authority funding mechanism for the 5 years included in the approval? I'm asking, I don't know. This doesn't happen often.
Well,
I thought it was already.
it's
Yeah,
It's in the memos, it's in the supporting memo noted as, right, so it's in the record.
and they have taken
They has
formal action on
authorized,
it.
okay,
Correct.
The redevelopment authority has.
Correct.
Thanks for checking.
I'm okay with it without that
Okay.
specific contingency.
Sorry, I didn't.
I'm okay with that without the specific language on that contingency.
Especially there as a body having committed to it.
Okay.
If there are no other comments, well, we already have the recusal, right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no, say no, and any abstentions? The motion carries, and our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at 7:32. Thank you.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.